Ooh, it's a hot bitch in here. Whew. Turn that heat down. How's everybody doing? Today, on the way to the shop, I just want to discuss ethanol a little bit. I want to discuss ethanol and its effects on volumetric efficiency, and then changes that you can make to your tuning based on that, and things like that. Eventually, I will demonstrate some fuel mapping that I do on the Mtron to compensate for the effects of ethanol on volumetric efficiency. Now, let me tell you that I was surprised. I was surprised at what it did. Why was I surprised? Well, I was surprised because if you think about fuel and fuel's effects on volumetric efficiency, as you increase fuel after a certain threshold, you start to lose power. Now, you lose power for multiple reasons. One of those reasons is that you've added so much mass to the cylinder that it absorbs that energy and temperature in the cylinder, reduces temperatures, and therefore reduces expansion. That's all an engine really is anyways, is the coupling of the expansion of a chemical process. And I mean, heck, that's why on a turbocharged car or anything where you have a really high power density, we like to add extra fuel. That extra fuel is there to remove extra heat or reduce residual heat in the cylinder by capturing that heat and taking it out the tailpipe. And that's why you run on a Subaru, for example, you'll be in the 11s, right? 11 something to 1 AFRs. It isn't because you make power at that AFR. You actually will make more power at a linear AFR quite easily. Because one, there's more heat going into the expansion, you get better expansion. But in a high power density engine, especially one that's prone to detonation due to hot spots and other things, due to this geometry or whatever you want to say, that extra heat will cause detonation. So you need to remove that heat, reduce detonation. Say lean is mean, and there's a very good reason for that. That heat from expansion is there, and yeah. So with that in mind, I thought, well, ethanol, shoot, I got 30% more mass going into this with ethanol. We'll say at 100% ethanol than I do with gasoline. So I have all this extra mass in the cylinder. Well, what's that going to do? Well, one thing it's going to do, and I didn't mention this yet, is it takes up space. Forget heat generation, heat removal, or anything like that. If I'm adding 30% more mass to a cylinder that's not oxygen, then I'm taking up space. And this has been shown in lots of tests with ethanol, methanol, gasoline, all kinds of stuff, that on NA engines, after a certain point, you don't make as much power because you actually occupy the air void with fuel, therefore reducing how much air you can get in the cylinder. Now, it's not a lot, right? A little bit of fuel is good for a lot of air, and it's done by mass, not volume, right? So my AFR is 14.7 to 1. That's 14.7 to 1 parts of air per fuel by mass. Now, if you think about a droplet of fuel, how much air do you need to equal the weight of that droplet of fuel? It's a significant amount. So if I'm adding 30% of this tiny little droplet, I'm not putting a lot more fuel in the chamber. I'm not displacing a whole lot of air, but it does exist, and especially on fuels that have very low stoichiometric ratios. So if I'm on methanol and I overfuel a methanol engine, using methanol, but if you overfuel it, you will also displace air and end up losing power. So there's a real sweet spot for methanol. That's where you want to run it, because there's that point where I've added too much mass, now I'm displacing air, and I no longer make as much power. Plus, again, I'm removing more heat and other things that aid in expansion. So I thought, all right, ethanol. If I was to do two VE maps, one on 0% and one ethanol map would have a lower VE by a few percent. Not 30%, right? Because again, we're talking by mass, but a lower VE by a few percent. I was wrong. Well, I was right, but I was also wrong. Because I had assumed that it was a linear relationship from one to the other. And in fact, it's not. And it's not even close. And the result is actually very surprising. Before I give it away, right now we're talking about a naturally aspirated engine. In a naturally aspirated engine, you have 4 strokes. But some people say there are 5 cycles. There's the intake, compression, combustion, exhaust. Those are normal 4 strokes. But there's a 5th cycle in there that happens for a very short period of time. And they call that the exhaust-driven intake stroke or cycle. And it's a very short period of time. It's just a period of time when both valves are open and the inertia of the exhaust leaving the engine, the weight of it, of all the other cylinders, everything, when that exhaust valve opens, it pulls the air-fuel mixture out of the exhaust out of the cylinder, and during overlap, there's a little bit of intake that's also sucked in with it. Now, you've heard me say many, many times that engines run on inertia. And this is one of those situations. At low RPM, this effect doesn't exist. There's not enough mass leaving the engine to have enough inertia to suck anything through valves that overlap. And at low RPM, it's just going to be a matter of pressure differences. The exhaust pressure higher than intake pressure, you're going to suck some into the engine or into the intake manifold. Or suck exhaust intake manifold. But now, at higher speeds and higher air velocities, you have the weight of the air coming in the engine, all that inertia pushing its way into the cylinder, and all the weight of the air leaving, all the inertia leaving the engine, trying to draw stuff out of the cylinder. So what happens if I raise that inertia value in the exhaust? It turns out, if I raise the inertia value in the exhaust, then I improve the amount of intake charge I get. That exhaust-driven intake charge goes up. Now, part of that inertial value, well, let me back that up. Part of that exhaust-driven charge is the inertia. The rest of it is the velocity. So now I have, and inertia is a function of velocity. I guess I should specify that as well. So how can I increase the inertia? I can either increase the velocity, or I can increase the weight, or I can do both. So when I add more mass and more expansion leaving the cylinder, I have more volume in the exhaust pipe. So by nature, I have more velocity. So if I add ethanol to a certain point, I add mass, therefore more inertia, and I add velocity due to the greater volume leaving the engine. So I've added both of those things, increasing the inertia, and therefore increasing the exhaust-driven intake charge. I hope that's clear. That's clear. I wish I probably should have done this with a chalkboard and not while driving. But if you think about it, inertia, I've got mass, I've got the velocity. So I need to either increase mass or increase velocity, or both. And in the case of as I add ethanol, I increase both. But after a point, I start to displace air. And after a point, I start to pull too much heat out of the combustion process. I start to quench, and I start to reduce the expansion ratio. So I was looking at a bunch of papers on this the other day as I was realizing that I was in error. And on a multitude of test engines, what they found was that 40% ethanol was the sweet spot. 40% ethanol raised the volumetric efficiency by almost 50%. Now, I don't mean out of 100, I mean out of the pre-existing volumetric efficiency. So the volumetric efficiency on their test engine at high load at redline had dropped to 60%. When they got to 40% ethanol, it was over 90. And that was really remarkable. And what was really interesting about it is it wasn't linear. It went up to 40, and then it dropped off relatively linearly from 40 down to 100, with 100 only being about a 5% gain in VE over 0%. I'll be quiet for a few seconds here. Let that marinate for a minute. Just think about that. So I have all these things happening in unison. I've added mass. I've increased the velocity. I've improved the intake or the exhaust-driven intake charge. And about 40%, I'm in that sweet spot where I've added enough mass, increased enough velocity that I'm getting a better intake charge to be used towards expansion and power producing process. It's really cool. This is really cool for NA guys because if you have any NA engine really, and you run 40% ethanol, chances are you're going to see some really good gains. As long as you're not octane limited and need the octane of 100%, like if you have 14-to-1 compression, well, 40% ethanol for that engine to run. But if you're in the right range where 40% is like right on the knock threshold or well within the knock threshold, then you can gain power by running 40% ethanol. It's really cool to think about. And how does that apply to turbo cars? Well, I don't know. I know that in my own personal car, when I run 40% ethanol, that's where I like to keep it. And this has been, I mean, it's purely coincidence. I love the way the car felt at 40%. I loved how it drove. I loved how much power I gained out of it. It felt torquier. Like I've always kept my car around 40% ethanol when I had a plentiful supply of ethanol. And then I find this paper that says 40%, that's like the spot. It's really interesting. So what I did in the M-Tron for the H6 that I'm doing is I put two VE maps that blend together. And they blend together based on ethanol concentration. So I took the E40 map, I put that as one of them. I took the E0 map, I did that as the other. The 40 is the highest, the 0 is the lowest. And then using their blend function, I blended those maps. 100% was only, well, so the way that the M-Tron works is you input a value 1 or value 2, and anything in between there is a ratio of the two. So 1.5 is going to take the two, it's going to average them. For 1.6, to put the two together, it's going to weight it towards the higher of the two. So I have a 1 at the 0, I have a 2 at the 40, and I have like a 1.1 or a 1 point something at the 100, and then slope down based on the results of those studies that I saw. Now that's fine and dandy in the NA region. I don't know how it's going to behave in boost. Is it going to be exactly the same? Is it going to be different? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I didn't see any results from studies on turbocharged cars, or engines, I should say, because they're not on cars. These are engines on dynos and stuff. But it's really interesting. One, that you can see how all these effects play into each other. You can see how they back up things that you may have learned in tuning, with how extra fuel affects heat, how extra fuel affects power. If you take an EFI 101 course from EFI University, one thing they do is they put the car or an engine on the dyno, and they show you that air-fuel ratio has no effect on power in the normal range. They bring it from like 14 down to like 11 and change, and the power doesn't change. But then when they get richer than that, the power does change. But what they're showing you is that for the most part, there's a little effect on power until you get to where you're removing too and you're adding too much fuel to the engine to where you're displacing other oxygen stuff. So, but in the normal ranges from like 11.5 or 12 or so up 14, the power difference was practically nothing. Now in a turbocharged car, when you do turbocharged car tuning, you go, wait a second, that doesn't track. I can clearly see that as I lean it out, power goes up. I mean, it's almost, as long as you have the octane for it, it's not going to knock. It's almost the leaner it is, the more power you make. And so I challenged Ben Strader during that course, and I said, hey, but what about this? And he was like, that's a good question. I don't know. Sorry, having connection issues. Waiting to see if they're back. All right, so take 3. If you tune a turbo car and you made power at 10.5 or 11, and you lean out half a point, you almost always see power go up. And you can lean to 12, you'll see power go up. As long as you can keep from knocking for the same ignition or whatever, you can see power go up. So I said, Ben, that's not at all agreeing with what you're showing us. Now it was an NA car on the dyno that he shows in this time. And he was like, yeah, I'm not sure. Because I'm like, it definitely changes. He's like, no, it doesn't. It definitely changes. He's like, well, I guess maybe it might. And I'm like, so I sat there for a while and I said, I know what it is. He's like, what's that? I said, I bet at the linear ratios, I have more expansion. I bet the wastegate is more open. If we were to log wastegate position, at the linear AFRs, wastegate position is going to be more open. We've got more expansion. We've got more exhaust energy. We're going to wastegate more. And the reduction in back pressure and the increase in wastegating is what's providing us the power gain that we see with the linear AFRs. That was our hypothesis as to why it makes a bigger difference on a turbocharged car. But we have yet to test that. But we see it all the time. If I tune a car at a certain AFR and then I lean it out, I will see that I need a lower wastegate duty cycle to achieve the same results, the same power. So if I have to use less wastegate duty cycle, then the wastegate is more open. So we're seeing that in the effects, but we're not directly measuring wastegate valve position. But you know, overall, that's as far as the testing has gone to show that or to prove that. Shit, I gotta stop at the store. I gotta drop off these packages. Do you have any questions in here yet? Some messages, blah, 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 live chat. Let's go live chat. Have we had any wankers with Broncos wandering with those 3-cylinder engines looking for a tune? Broncos? You mean Trailblazers? Because I know the Trailblazer has a 3-cylinder. I didn't know the Bronco had a 3-cylinder. I thought the Bronco was a V8. Or like an EcoBoost 6 or something. I don't know. I guess I don't know enough on the Broncos if it's also got a 3-cylinder option. We have a Blazer, which is a V6. 380 horsepower V6. Which you guys have heard me gush over all the time. I actually talked to a friend last night about the STI and how it's been so low powered for so long. He was talking about getting one. I'm like, no, dude, don't get one right now. Like 2021, whatever. They don't get one of those fucking things. They're still only 305 horsepower. You're not gonna like that. He's like, well, they've always been 305. I'm like, yeah, they have always been 305. I was like, my fucking SUV has 308. Like, screw that shit. Don't get a new STI. That's gross. This guy paying attention? Yeah, buddy. Use the steering wheel, please. Thank you. So no, I haven't seen any 3-cylinders come by for tunes, Broncos or Trailblazers. Either one I have not seen. Speed bump. Any other questions? Is that it? Did I just blow everybody's mind and you're all sitting here just like, wow, what is going on? Here we go. Oh, there's a bunch of comments. Weird, it's not showing them. Give me a second, let me park this car and I'll go through them. I gotta stop at the UPS store to drop off a bunch of packages. A lot of cooling mods going out to Rally Sport Direct today. And yesterday too, actually. Sent a bunch out. Oh my God, no reverse parking camera? What am I gonna do? Use my fucking mirrors like everybody else does. All right, there we go. All right, let me look at these comments really quick. Give me a second. Yeah, Jesus Christ, come on. All right, let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Never had a problem. I love it. Hey, dude, thanks for the donation, by the way. I didn't see that coming in. I was driving. I didn't realize that was a donation. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I hope that everything's been going good for you over there. Jim, you learned a little bit, not too much. How does this work on 90s big block? The same. The same, actually. Work exactly the same. It's any NA engine that utilizes any form of exhaust-driven intake charge is going to see that. That's not what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't discriminate. What personal car are you referring to that you like E40 the best? My RS. My white RS, I always kept that thing at 40%. It's not running right now, but definitely 40% of that all the time. I came here for the ethanol, VE, and energy density talk. Excellent, welcome. 30 minutes behind. Hate being behind. Unless she's really hot. I also just logged on, and I'm kidding. All right. Right on, guys. Sorry, I don't ever chew gum on stream, but I grabbed some on the way out of the house, and now I am, and I'm sure it's terrible. Okay, looks like, oh, here we go. Did you say how you fixed the oil problem? I'll go back to the stream and see. No, I haven't made a stream on that yet. So, this is what I figured out. The Mtron, let's see, I'll say this. Okay, so CAN bus protocols are just little packets of data that are sent out. And you have a stream ID and you have, the value. It could be, oh my God, what is it called now? My fucking brain is all of a sudden forgetting. You get the little single bytes or the two, oh wow, I forgot the terminology. Anyways, basically what happened was the Mtron was telling the car that it was in 14th gear, because the Mtron has up to 14 gears, and I hadn't yet calibrated the gear speed and the gear indicator on it. Now, the ECU or the cluster was looking for a single byte, and 14 became two numbers. So once I exceeded or 17, it was 17th gear, because once you exceed 16, you got to go over a slot. So it was 17th gear, and so it sent 2 bytes of data next to that same ID, and that second byte is the one that's needed to trigger the low oil level. So once I fixed the gear calculator, it transmitted that it was in first gear or neutral, whatever gear it was. It was now less than 16, and it was in a single bytes location. Then the cluster no longer saw the flag for the low oil level of all the shit, right? So I was talking to the Entron guy when this happened, and like we just talked about it on the phone, and I was showing him. I videoed it, and the video you guys probably saw. And I showed him the video, and we're talking about what the light looked like, what happens when it happens. He goes, "Yep." He's like, "I heard it as soon as you hit enter. Bloop, the thing came in as soon as you enabled the CAN." So then I get off the phone with him, and I thought it's in the same spot as the gear. Maybe I forgot to set something up, right? Yeah, an overflow of the single byte. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. So, freaking, I go to the gear selection section and gear detection, and I look at it, and oh, this is set up wrong. I haven't enabled that yet, or I haven't put in the data for it. Put the data in it. I hit enter. Punk, light went away. And I was like, what? Hold on a second. Changed it back. Blink, light came back on. I was like, motherfucker. And what's funny is I just got off the phone with the guy from Intron, and I said, because he goes, you know what, this obviously isn't you. He's like, you've done this on 2 cars, and now you have that error on 2 cars, or 2 Mtrons, 2 application builds. He goes, obviously it's something that we got going on. I don't know what it is yet, but I'll let you know what we figure out, or at least what the expectation should be. We may say we don't plan on fixing it because it's just a stupid light. No one cares about that, because most of these things are race cars, and no one cares about a dumb oil light. A lot of guys are using, aftermarket gauges and screens and that kind of stuff. He goes, or we may put effort into fixing it, and I'll just let you know what they say in Australia. And I was like, you know what? I'm fine with that. Even if you guys say that's just what it is, then that's just what it is. Fine, fuck it. I don't care. And I go, and if I find out that it's me, I'll call you right away and let you know, because, whatever. I hang up. I do 2 things. I fucking clears. I call him back. I go, Nick. He's like, what? I go, it's fucking me, dude. And he's like, what do you mean? I go, it was me. It was me. What do you mean it was you? I go, well, and I told him I did. And then I showed him, and I told him the gear chart and how it goes up to 17, and how it was telling the car that it was in 17th gear, and all that. And he laughed, and he's like, I don't want to say that's you, because that's still something really weird that our software or our firmware should have covered. He's like, but I'm really glad you figured it out. And I was super apologetic. Man, I am so sorry for wasting your time. Spent all kinds of time on this. He goes, no, this is good. And he's like, one, we now know what it is. So if somebody else has this problem, we know what to do about it. And he was like, and really, our software or our build should be capable of knowing that it shouldn't transmit 17th gear, to the cluster and all this kind of stuff. But I was like, nah, man, I'm sorry. I was angry so many times and all that shit, and all I had to do was fix the gear thing, and that's all it was. So I apologized a bunch, and he was like, he kept saying, don't be sorry, dude, don't be sorry. Like, it totally makes sense. He's like, it's something that we definitely could have done better too, and all that. But boy, this chick is having a hard time backing out of the spot next to me. I have no idea. I know that the Ford's got that 10-speed auto, but yeah. Anyways, so it turns out it was just that. It was that the gear detection system wasn't set up completely, and as soon as I set that up, light went out. And it makes sense, because both cars I had the problem with, I never drove them. The first car, I never drove it because I wasn't ever going to drive with the M-Tron. It was done strictly for the testing of the damper. This car, obviously, I'm going to drive it. And when I drive it is usually when I set up all the gear detection stuff, because you got to calibrate, engine speed versus vehicle speed in the gear that you're in, get that ratio and put it in. And I'm not going to do that on the lift. That's dumb, because the speed does this anyways on the when all the tires are in the air. So ladies don't do that until the dyno or the ground anyways. So I hadn't done it. And I was just sitting there thinking the only thing I hadn't done was the gear stuff. And then I freaking enabled it, turned it on, not enabled it, changed the mode, put some values in, and instantly fixed. I just shook my head. I still am. All that time because the damn gear indicator was maxed out. But that's what it was. The cool thing is that we know now where that bite is, where that one's located for that oil level. So if I want to, well, I need to get them to tell me which bite it is exactly, which one it actually is, because they just have it in their packet. I can't see the numbers. But if they tell me which one it is, I can write my own CAN packet for the oil level, and then I can have a parameter. Oh shit, dude, your box is open. I can use a parameter to trip that light, the oil level. Like, say I want to, if I have a dry sump and I put an oil level sensor in the dry sump, just in case you pop a line, you don't realize it, and the oil level starts dropping, you're dumping oil on the track or whatever it is, and you don't know it. Now light comes in, tell you your level's low. Like, you can set it at a level that's below where it would be when you drive around and swerving. But then you could also have that as an excellent protection for a track car or for a personal car. If you do an FA, or you put this in an FA has oil level. The EZ has a big plug in the side of the pan. I think it's for oil temp. But you could put an oil level /temp sensor in there. The 2010 Legacy Plus, it has oil level. So I could use the oil level pan, in a car if I wanted to have that level sensor in there. So those cars would work. So like the oil level in the cluster, now we can find where that bite is, and make that a functional feature. So that's cool. That's a win. But all right, let me see. Any more messages that I need to answer real quick? I have to go drop these boxes off. Yeah, they need double digits regardless of what they're using exactly. I still don't iPhone very well. I'm learning this, so forgive me. I'm trying to just dim the screen some. The phone's getting hot in my hand. All right, I'm gonna go take boxes in. Let's see, where'd it go? What's going on? There it is. Okay. Carrying a bunch of boxes. Oh yeah. Oh, that's really dirty. Is my tent rolling or something? All right. Let's see if there's any last messages here. Transparency and humility. Great explanation, Don. Thanks for sharing. Have you seen a difference firsthand in power made on boosted engine between 40 and 70? Yes. Yeah, so on boosted engines, it's VE is largely supplied by the turbocharger. And I don't want to say just VE, because actually really VE drops as boost goes up. Well, that's not true either. So what does VE do? VE goes up and then goes down in the boosted engine. And it'll do it at different boost levels and different RPM. So what does that mean? Well, the exhaust pressure at some point will exceed boost pressure. And then shortly after that, you will start losing VE. Now, does that mean that you're making less power? No, because you're increasing air density, right? VE is volumetric efficiency. It's not mass flow rate. Now, VE, if for the same air mass, is going to become mass flow rate. But let's say I lose VE by 3%, but the air is 8 times more dense or 8% more dense. Well, then I got a 5% net positive on that. So in most turbocharged engines that are street driven, that have, medium-sized turbochargers, that kind of stuff, what you'll see is somewhere around a bar or so and 4,000 to 5,000 RPM ish, somewhere like that. You'll see exhaust pressure is climbing, and that's when it passes up your boost pressure. So then it's a game between, as my exhaust pressure increases and my VE drops, am I gaining enough air mass or enough air density to make up for that? So in some engines, as you crank the boost up, you'll start to see that power does not increase. That the increase in density is not enough. You've actually starting to lose mass because, one, your VE has dropped greatly and your exhaust retention has increased greatly in the cylinder. So now you have less room for fresh air charge. And you're losing power. That's the other thing too, is that you also use power to create that pressure. So you can get to a point where the power that's needed to drive the turbo exceeds the power gained by the boost or airflow, whatever. Typically, that's not until 2 or 3 times the boost pressure, 2 or 3 times pressure in the exhaust versus boost pressure. Stock Subaru, or sorry, stage 2 STI, whatever, runs like 2 to 2.5 times exhaust pressure versus boost pressure. So that alone says, wow, the VE is tanking hard. But the increase in air density shows an overall increase in air mass, and the air mass results in power. As long as, again, the increase in exhaust pressure hasn't caused the engine to use too much horsepower to drive the turbine. Does that make sense? Let me know if that makes sense. Now, he said between E40 and E70. So yes, the answer is absolutely yes on a turbocharged car. Why? Because in the turbocharged car, I need the octane. I need the octane because I am pushing. I'm pushing everything harder. I'm increasing cylinder pressure. I'm increasing retained heat, right? As I raise that exhaust pressure and I lower the VE, but I increase the BTUs in the engine, less of them are able to get out. I have less mass through the engine now, right? Or less, not mass again, I guess, slow it down. Less volume through the engine now. So I need to make sure that I have enough mass in there to help absorb the extra heat that would normally make it knock. Also, I probably need the octane to handle the higher pressures, the higher cylinder pressures, and everything else that would cause the engine to knock. So yeah, almost always see an increase in power from 40 to 70. Over 60 or so, the power increase starts to taper off. It isn't, there's big power gains up to like 60 or so, then it starts to fade a bit. And you still make more power at 80 or 85, versus 60, but it's not a lot more. Unless, again, you're in a situation where you're running such high boost, you have such a high static compression ratio with the boost that you need the octane in the fuel to even be able to run the engine in those conditions. So a lot of variables in that, but it's rare on a turbocharged car that I would ever not see a gain. Not only do I gain from that, but I also gain faster spool. If I have more mass entering the engine, 30% more, it also has to leave the engine. And if it leaves the engine, that energy, the inertia is higher, the energy is imparted on the turbine blade of the turbocharger. So at a lower RPM, I have 30% more mass than I had before. Well, fuel mass, obviously, because it now matches the air mass, but so it's going to be 20% more mass than I had before, leaving the engine for the same RPM, which means there's that much more energy getting imparted on the turbine, which means the car is going to spool the turbo that much faster. So you always get faster spool with more ethanol. You almost always get more horsepower with more ethanol on a turbocharged car. Now, if you're running 8 pounds of boost on an 8-to-1 compression engine, you don't need the octane. You're not going to gain as much, at the higher ethanol concentrations. You might find that you don't make any more power at really high concentrations than you make down low, because you've already been able to time the engine at MBT. You've already been able to get the most amount of mass in the cylinder that you could possibly get, and then that's it. That's all you got. And so adding more octane doesn't do you any good. You might not see any gains over 40%. If it's just a low power density scenario, you know, now if it's a low power density, now we're back into that NA frame, you know, like that test engine that did these tests on there. So, and at 8 pounds, right, your exhaust pressure is going to be well below your boost pressure. It's not going to eclipse it. It's going to stay below. So it's going to behave more like a larger NA vehicle than like a high boost turbocharged vehicle. Did that answer the question? I hope so. I'm still behind. I made my screen too dim now. Does that make sense? Have I seen everything? Yes. Okay. I need my reading glasses. This is so dim. All right. So today I have a flex fuel tune for Jarrett Smith, I think was his name. That's at 2:30. That's an hour from now. So I'm going to go in and see the progress on the STI. I think the whole header should be done. All the way to the turbo merge. He had it mostly done yesterday. So I'm hoping it's completely done. If it's completely done, then we might start it and listen to it, because it sounds pretty cool, I think. I don't know how it's going to sound with all 6 cylinders coming into one pipe. Boy, I'm getting my ass kicked by this fucking iPhone. This iPhone just kicks my ass all the time. Emails take forever to write because the keyboard doesn't understand tuner. Holy shit, it's so bad. At least my Google keyboard understood tuner. Like, I could say tune and it would put in tune and it wouldn't change it to tuba or tuna or whatever the fuck it does all the time. And the keyboard on this iPhone, when I write it always changes to the get. And if I use word, then I don't fucking get it. But anyways, at least it's not crashing and locking up all day long like my freaking Android did. All right, let's see what we got. I'm gonna turn this around. We're gonna go to the shop and see what this STI looks like today. Oh, there's a yellow car.
Yep.
Is this the oil change car?
What?
The yellow car, is that the oil change car?
No, Kevin's doing a bunch of wrap on it.
Oh, what?
Kevin's doing wrap on it.
Oh, nice.
Also, turbo spins and has oil.
Turbo has oil now too?
Yes, sir.
Fuck yes.
Spins, I already fired it up.
You fired it up? How did it sound with the turbo whistling?
The best ever.
I want to hear it.
You want to hear it?
So does YouTube.
Let's do it.
Is it free? Can we do it now?
Yeah.
All right.
All I'm doing is tucking that harder so I can build a downpipe.
Cool.
Oh, did you see the drain in the pan too?
No.
Yep. Better not be coming down. Better stop. I am for this second. Feel how rigid that thing is in there.
The turbo?
Yeah.
The whole engine goes with it.
Yep. That's with no supports on it either. It's just a manifold.
So you just got a charge pipe and finish the coolant pipe? No, the coolant pipe's done.
Coolant's done. So I've got hose clamps on it too.
Finish the one charge pipe. No more zip ties?
Nope.
Oh.
All hose clamps. Charge pipe, down pipe.
Down pipe. O2 sensor.
O2 sensor.
Pitch stop bolt.
Pitch stop bolt, and I think we still need 2 bell housings. Which obviously doesn't matter for this moment, but it will.
Did you start it from Ike?
Yeah.
What did he say?
You want to be up here? I'll start it.
No, I'm good. I want to hear it here. I want to hear it everywhere.
Yep.
Oh, it sounds so good. Use more fuel to the lane. Wow, that sounds good. Now, is that just condensation on that pipe from the ethanol?
Yep.
It's not oil, right? Nope, just condensation. Yep, it's condensation. Let's make sure it wasn't oil. Sweet.
It just has a lot of cold piping to go through, so it's speeding up.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, super sweet. And Igor's line worked perfectly. I wish it had a 90 on this side, but it's okay. It'll just be behind that charge pipe.
Yeah, fine.
But that's that banjo bolt.
I mean, you can even go this if you wanted to, but
it looked really funny.
Yeah,
It looked worse than this because this is going to get at least covered up.
Yep.
And then the charge pipe will. The only part you'll see is this right here.
Right. Oh, I mean right here.
Yeah.
On the spot. Yeah.
But it'll be mostly covered up by that pipe. But that's just that banjo.
This is sweet.
Yep.
It makes me smile.
It does.
It makes me smile more than any build I've done in a while, actually. Where the fuck is my Tmap sensor? Oh, it's up back on the table.
Yeah, I was actually gonna see before your tune gets here if you want to wire that in because I don't know how to do it. But yeah, this thing is solid.
Yeah. And that didn't have the brace on it yet.
Nope, has nothing on it.
Yeah, but it will.
Yeah, it'll have the upper
The
brace.
shield and brace.
Yep.
Fuck yeah, dude, that sounds awesome.
Just to keep it from wanting to vibrate.
Yeah, that looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. And that's still open turbo, which is like still bad.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Look, I'm smiling. This never happens. I don't smile.
I don't know what's happening.
I'm smile proof. What is this feeling? His heart grew 3 sizes that day.
The Subaru Grinch?
Yep, I am the Subaru Grinch. Just ask the internet. Have we raised the intercooler yet?
I moved the engine over. I gained quite a bit of clearance.
Yeah, still scary.
We'll see if it gets close. The engine doesn't move that much.
I mean, right now.
Well, and when
you add the torques.
When you're revving it goes the other direction now.
What? I should go that way. I should lift whoop, that way.
When you were revving it the other day, it was going the other direction.
That's weird. It still turns this way, right? It's the same rotation direction? Yeah, so it rotates the opposite direction. It should pick up like that.
I don't know. When you were revving it, maybe it was like decel or something. Maybe decel had more.
Yeah, or maybe because the bolts aren't actually at the bottom?
No, they're in.
Oh, they are in? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I slid it over all the way and then tightened them down.
Gotcha.
It's funny because it makes my headers look uneven, but the engine's tilted slightly. so that one header looks slightly...
I'm not going to adjust instead, I'm sorry.
What did he say?
In response to his heart grew 3 sizes that day, he says, a lot of people's hearts are growing these days. Hashtag myocarditis.
Nice.
Oh, it's fucking good.
So it makes one of my headers looks like it's slightly lower than the core support on one side, like more than the other. But when you measure them from the flange, they're both like exactly the same. It's just the engine's over in its pocket and it's up on the one side.
Gotcha. Do we need to move it some more?
Well, what I want to do...
The engine does look over that way still.
So what I want to do is I want to weld this end tank up. Put my bolts in the bottom and then give it a little bit of work over. And move it just so that the sensor's to the side of it, not necessarily in the corner. Yeah. Because I can. This pipe actually lines up. It needs to go that way just a smidge.
That's easy enough.
So, and because it's aluminum, it'll be able to, bend on it, but I can't really push on this end tank very much. No. So when I get that welded up, we'll shimmy it over a smidge and gain some more clearance. But I'm going to get that down pipe buttoned up.
That's so cool. Well, when it's all said and done, we'll be at 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, but like I said,
it's like 14 days of actual work. We didn't even start for the first fucking 2 days because all the back and forth.
Yep, and then we lost. Every Monday has been nothing.
Yeah.
And then Tuesdays have been like kinda days.
Yeah. No, it's been good though. That's great.
And we've had to do 100% of it from scratch with
zero kits.
Before, so I'll just do it again.
Yeah. 30. It's a 30, Travis.
I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah, this is a JDM EZ30 that I got for my RS. I bought from JDM of Houston. I got this and a 6-speed. The 6-speed was for the SVX, and then the engine was for the RS. And we put it in the RS, and it was there for like a week, and I'm like, it's going to take too much modification of the RS. That's not too much.
Yeah, it's going to take permanent modification RS I didn't want to do to the RS. My little RS over there. But I have other ones that I will do it to, because the other ones I don't give a shit about. And I have one that has a cage in it, so I'll probably end up putting this in the one with the cage in it, because it's not going to have AC, and I'll be able to put the turbo where the fuck I want, intercooler where I want, radiator wherever I want, probably in the back even. So that one's going to be stupid fast, and we'll get one of these. Probably a D-stroke 36 in the long run, but we'll see. Anyways, so I'm going to end the stream right now. With that, I got a bunch of people to talk to.
And I could literally grab the harness like this.
I will, Justin. I'll let him know. But thank you guys for stopping by. And we're going to release a whole video that shows a bunch of the steps that we did, and a lot of that fabrication, all kind of stuff. It's going to be really cool. And I hope that the ethanol discussion today was enlightening and fun. And that's it. See you guys.